Good evening, everyone. I know a lot of you have been waiting for some sort of response on what's going on between Israel and Iran with this drone attack and what's gone on in Iran in the last 48 hours. But I want you to know that there's a lot of bad information to filter through on this. By the very nature of how Iran and Israel work, they don't let a lot out. They don't say a lot. They don't provide any information, even within their intelligence communities or even contacts that I would know that I could communicate through on Telegram or other mediums to kind of get the information. So if there's anyone that isn't a part of Iran's security apparatus or Israeli security apparatus on this app saying this is absolutely what has happened, you need to take that with a bit of skepticism. From what I've gathered through the people I've been able to chat with and some of the sources that I very much trust, is it appears that Israel conducted an overnight drone attack on a single military factory in Iran. Now, I know there's been a lot of reports that multiple other sites were hit, but I can tell you right now that none of that is confirmed. I do know that one singular site, which was a part of Iran's Space Research Center in the city of Isfahan, was attacked. And it is U.S. officials that are saying that it was likely Israel that conducted the attack. Now, Iran is claiming that the attack was not successful. There was no casualties or serious damage, and they had intercepted multiple drones. I believe they probably did because these types of sites have a lot of defense around them, but I don't believe there wasn't serious damage. I think there was likely a successful attack, but some of the drones probably were intercepted by Iranian defenses. And the reason I say that is because the Iranians have shown some of the drones that were used for the attack, and they are quadcopters that were carrying high explosives. This means that any reports of the attacks being launched from Azerbaijan can be seen kind of as potentially not the case, because the distance from Azerbaijan to these sites is quite long. So you would need a larger scale military type drone to get there. The reality is these were at least the quadcopters, the three that Iran's saying that they downed, are not big enough with a long enough range to come from Azerbaijan, which means almost worse for Iran. They came from internal to Iran. Now, it's been long known that multiple countries' agents have infiltrated Iran, from Mossad in Israel to the U.S., Britain, etc. And they come in through places like Azerbaijan, through Iranian Kurdistan and Iraqi Kurdistan. So that is always present there. And it really kind of underscores, if this is the case, the extent to which Israeli intelligence services have penetrated into Iran and their security sphere. Now, I say this because this isn't the first time this has happened. Even recently, in 2018, Mossad conducted a raid on an archive that housed sensitive nuclear documents that Tehran was holding. Mossad assassinated a senior Iranian nuclear scientist in November of 2020. They sabotaged the Natanz fuel enrichment plant in July of 2020, and then it did it again in April of 2021. And then they've also conducted kamikaze drone attacks on the centrifuge manufacturing facilities in Karaj, and they did that in June of 2021. Now, why I don't think this was a drone attack, a kamikaze drone attack, is because most of these types of facilities are heavily defended. They know that they're targets. The Iranians know that they're targets, so they put up a lot of defenses, which is why quadcopters were being used. When I heard there were quadcopters, I immediately thought that doesn't necessarily sound like Israel's calling card, and with all these protests taking place, potentially an internal attack, but many U.S. officials are confident that it came out of Israel. Again, Iran and Israel is saying really nothing about this, and they never will. The reality is a lot of social media is saying that there was also explosions on the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps headquarters, the Quds Special Forces base, an oil refinery, the Hamadan and Karaj military bases, all of which could be true, but I don't know. And a lot of people don't know. So a lot of the footage of potentially these are currently going through their geolocation, various OSINT, etc., to kind of get that. It's still too early to tell. What makes this more complicated is around the time of the attack, a 5.9 magnitude earthquake happened in northern Iran. And it's unknown if maybe that earthquake caused some of the explosions or other attacks. Again, both Iran and Israel are being very quiet, so we may never know. Some are saying that the earthquake was due to an underground nuke plant being hit by a bunker buster, but again, this is unlikely because the US has the ability to detect underground nuclear related explosions, and we would have seen this taking place. Now, what I do know is probably true is the videos of fighter jets flying over either Iran were probably true, because when an attack happened on one of their military sites, they probably scrambled Iranian fighters in preparation for potential further attacks. So those are likely the case. Now, some others have speculated that about the Azerbaijan thing because of a day before this attack took place, there was an attack on the Azerbaijani embassy in Iran where the head of security was killed. Now, this was a gunman that came into the facility and started shooting at everyone. Now, there are reports, though, that the gunman was Azerbaijani and was trying to rescue his wife and wasn't politically motivated and is unrelated to anything Israel would have done. But that's Iranian reporting coming out. So, again, grain of salt here. Now, what will happen going forward? What's the potential outcome? As I've said before, this is not anything new. Iran and Israel have conducted covert attacks on their interests, both in each other's countries and through proxies elsewhere around places like Syria or Iraq. Now, Iran probably won't blame anyone. They won't blame Israel or anyone else, including the U.S. Instead, they'll probably just quietly respond using their proxies through terrorist organizations to attack U.S. positions in Iraq and Syria, or even Israel itself in the coming weeks as in retaliation to what's going on. It also will probably increase some of the Iranian concerns on the infiltration within their security sphere over Mossad and CIA and other agents coming in and infiltrating through the various the Iranian and Iraqi Kurdistan regions, as well as Azerbaijan, which has been a point of contention for them. What's interesting is, separate from this, we all know these protests are taking place, and citizens were shown in Tehran marching and shouting "Death to Khamenei" and "Damn Khamenei" after these attacks. But no broad protests broke out because obviously Iran deployed its security police and military force apparatus both to squash any protests, but also to potentially stop any further attacks. Now, while Israel has been somewhat claiming its neutrality in the war in Ukraine, this could be an interesting twist because Russia is an ally to Iran, and the Iranians have been developing Shahed drones that have been used in Ukraine, and because of Iran's ties to the U.S., Russian propagandists have called for Putin to help Iran develop a nuclear weapon and transfer it to Iran to attack Israel. That was said on state TV a few days ago in Russia. So I don't know how strained this neutrality Israel wants to maintain with regard to Russia-Ukraine, how far that can go, with obviously now Israel once again attacking Iran. And this comes only 5 days after the U.S. said that it was ready to quickly conclude a deal to revive the 2015 Iran nuclear agreement on the basis of the recommendation from the European Union. Now, they were all in Vienna for talks, or called the Vienna talks, to discuss the future of Iran's program. In fact, Russia was actually present at that as well. And representatives from the European Union, from Britain, from the US, and Russia all expressed optimism, saying that the progress of these talks have been very good, that Iran is on board. And even Iran has said they have accepted many of the proposals, but still have to review a lot of them for any finalized decisions. But no word on how any of this that took place in the last 24 hours is going to affect Iran's willingness to give up nukes. All I know is this whole situation is a huge mess, and just be aware of fake videos, be aware of people saying the absolutes of what's happened, especially this close to when the attack took place. A lot of these things that Mossad carries out, we don't even know. We don't even know what goes on. A lot of it we've probably missed, and it's happened, and neither Iran nor Israel has claimed anything. This was just so public with regard to what was happening in Iran that it hit social media. So it seems like the U.S. felt compelled to discuss something about it to get the word out. but Israel and Iran aren't talking.